we're up to your wide receiver 10. Who you got?
This is where I have Michael Pittman, Johnny Jones's guy.
There you go.
Hopefully you press the button
my wide
on
receiver
that.
12. I have Pittman as my wide receiver 12.
24 years old, wide receiver 15 on the year. And he's going to be playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with. I mean, Calvin Ridley last season with Matt Ryan had 52 targets in 5 games. That's a 27.4% target share, 40% air yard share. Over those 5 games, Calvin Ridley was 4th in air yard share. Something people don't think about because Calvin Ridley wasn't firing all that much last year. But Matt Ryan was giving him all the chances he could handle to succeed, and he was not succeeding with them. And then we all know how that went for Calvin Ridley. But Pittman is in that spot now. He's in the spot where in the first 5 games he can get 52 targets, which would be phenomenal. And his only competition, you can point to Calvin Ridley's competition last year really just being Kyle Pitts, Russell Cordell Patterson, right? But Pittman's competition is even less than what Calvin Ridley had in Atlanta. Paris Campbell might be
Alec
the wide
Pierce,
receiver 2 there until Alec Pierce can come in and take that spot from him. But even so, you're hoping that Alec Pierce becomes what we all thought Paris Campbell was going to be.
Naheem Hines, Mo Alley Cox.
Hines is there, Mo Alley Cox is there.
Or pieces that we are interested in, but from a overall perspective, from like the target competition. Yeah,
much less target competition.
Much less.
And you look at what Michael Pittman did last year in the advanced metrics. Not a lot of wide receivers. Not a lot of. I can't put these metrics in here. We didn't discuss these metrics with a lot of wide receivers because they just didn't have the totals that Michael Pittman did. But in total route wins, which is exactly what it sounds like. How many wins you have against your competition across from you on a route-per-route basis. Michael Pittman was 3rd in the NFL in total route wins, 4th in the NFL in route win rate, 14th in targets, 3rd in route participation. That picture showed
it's a pretty one.
I mean, it's a pretty one, but like if you're winning routes at the 3rd and 4th best rate in the NFL, but you're only 14th in targets, there's a disconnect there. And we saw that play out last year. When Michael Pittman was heavily targeted by Carson Wentz, it seemed to work out. And then there were games, and I know Jonathan Taylor's there. Why would you not feed Jonathan Taylor the rock? But there were large swaths of games throughout the season last year where Michael Pittman was kind of, I'm not going to say phased out of the offense, but it almost felt that way because
they ran the ball to take the ball out of Wentz's hands because Wentz was such an erratic player, is such an erratic player.
But they're going to do the opposite with Matt Ryan. They're not, I mean, he is going to probably have the same, grade out the same in terms of total route wins because that's something that does carry over year to year. If you're a good savvy route runner, you just are. That is just what you are. But 14th in targets, that's going to go way up with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, I made this point earlier, has thrown for over 4,000 yards in 10 straight seasons prior to 2021. In 2021, he threw for under 4,000 yards in one more game for the first time in his career, and a lot of that had to do with no Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley going down after 5 weeks,
the deck was completely stacked against him,
right? But Cordell Patterson being a dual threat option to where he wasn't solely winning through the air, he was winning on the ground. There were a lot of factors here that added up to Matt Ryan not throwing for 4,000 yards for the first time in 10 years.
And now he's also got to boot a significantly better offensive line.
Carson Wentz, 2021, he passed for 3,563 yards. So in 2021, he passed for less yards than even Matt Ryan did last year.
In a better situation,
right? I'm sorry. In 2021, Carson Wentz got Michael Pittman to wide receiver 15. on 3,500 passing yards. And Matt Ryan has a track record of throwing for over 500 yards more than that yearly in his sleep. Michael Pittman is going to be better than the wide receiver 15 this year. It's just a matter of where he falls.
Matter of where he lands.
And right now I have him jumping 5 spots to wide receiver 10. And I think even that is conservative. And maybe it's just because I am that bullish on Michael Pittman. But we saw how many years, straight seasons, did we see Julio Jones finish with over 1,400 yards?
Yeah, I mean, and
I'm not.
Julio's phenomenal, phenomenal talent.
My point was that a lot of that had to do with the rate at which Matt Ryan passed the ball
to his wide receiver 1.
Julio Jones wasn't getting those totals on any other team in the NFL. Matt Ryan is a underrated, good passer in the NFL. I'll say it, just under that elite tier. He's not elite,
yeah, I mean, he's won an MVP, so
I would say he's a great passer in the league. You don't throw for 4,000 yards in 10 straight seasons without being a great passer in the league. And he gets the best wide receiver he's ever played with outside of Julio Jones and Michael Pittman.
Does that include Calvin Ridley? And Hunter's asking that question. Is Michael Pittman on Ridley's level or talent level? I'm kind of paraphrasing.
I mean, Calvin Ridley did have a year where he finished, wide receiver 4?
I think his 3rd season. Yeah, he was like when he took over as the wide receiver 1 over Julio. He was
but
excellent.
Julio was still on the squad, right?
Julio was still on the squad.
Yeah, Michael Pittman can do that this year. That's what I'm saying. Michael Pittman's ceiling is what Calvin Ridley did that season.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's 24 years old.
Yeah, he's still getting better. Potential for a 3rd-year breakout.
I like
and
Michael
Hunter
Pittman
about
a lot,
Matt Ryan not being Matt Ryan anymore. I don't know that we can say that. I think we saw a Falcons team collectively bottom out last year, and Ryan still wasn't that awful. Again, the Falcons' offensive line is dog water. The Colts' offensive line is great. He's going to be getting the best
team is great.
The Colts team as a whole is great. Yeah, the Falcons, like, their defense is trash. Like, Matt Ryan had to, like, how many times did the Falcons have a lead late and they blew it because their defense was awful? Not last year. Last year they were just bad, but the year before. I don't know that we can say that Matt Ryan is done or not the same anymore, so to speak. Yeah, obviously he's older. He's 36, 37 at this point. So, I mean, you know, you have to take that into consideration, but quarterbacks in their late 30s can still do it. And that's painting with a broad brush, but I wouldn't say Matt Ryan is done.
Look at the quarterbacks that have moved on. I think he's going to be just fine. Look at the quarterbacks that have moved on. Look at the quarterbacks that have moved on late in their careers recently. Later in their careers recently. Matt Stafford was nobody's favorite quarterback on the Lions. I mean, he kind of topped out as a borderline QB1. He was like QB12, QB11, and that's where he topped out at. Goes to a different team in the, I'll say, twilight of his career that better fits what he does well, and he finishes as a high-end QB1 and wins a Super Bowl. I mean, who else? Tom Brady. Tom Brady on the Patriots.
That's the GOAT.
No. Tom Brady on the Patriots. When he left the Patriots, we were all thinking, can he do what he did with Belichick on the Patriots on another team? Is this where we see the fall off for Tom Brady? Obviously, that sounds crazy now. But what did he do when he left the Patriots after being on the Patriots and going to all those Super Bowls, even late in his career? He got better statistically. Because the team that went out and paid money to get him was more willing to play to his strengths and let him kind of run the offense and dictate to them what he wanted from the offense elsewhere. Whereas where he was staying where he was at, he just kind of stagnant. And yes, they went to the playoffs, deep into the playoffs, and went to the Super Bowl pretty much every single year. But you look at what Tom Brady was doing on the Patriots versus what Tom Brady was doing was doing on the Bucks. It's almost like the tale of two cities. And we could say that we could see the same thing pan out for Matt Ryan. And I know what you're saying, Hunter L. Look at the weapons for Stafford and look at the weapons for Brady. Matt Ryan doesn't quite have those weapons. But we're not talking about Matt Ryan coming in and being a top 5 quarterback. We're talking about his number one weapon.
Yeah, we're just talking about supporting one guy.
Yeah, we're talking about Michael Pittman here. Do I expect Matt Ryan to come into Indianapolis and win a Super Bowl? No. I wouldn't
and for
even
fantasy, he's like a
in.
QB2.
Right. But he is playing on the all-around best roster I believe he's ever played on. All-around roster?
I don't. Yeah, I'm not.
Roster.
I can't. I don't know.
All-around roster. I think it's the best all-around roster that he's ever played on. Maybe not the best weapons.
Regardless, this is not like a. This is. I think point blank. I don't think we can use like the past couple of years to paint where Matt Ryan is in his career.
Yeah.
I think this year. I think he's going to prove that he can still do it for at least another couple of seasons. And he might not put up the fantasy numbers, but we're not talking about Matt Ryan here. We're talking about just can Matt Ryan support a high-end wide receiver 1 option for fantasy? And I would say the answer is yes.
Yes.